Howdy, folks. I'm in preparation for the BanjerDan's show, number 13. If I'm doing this right, it's going to show up on my cell phone so that I can see your comments as they come in. Let's see if this is happening. So far, it's not. Here I am. And I see I have a watcher, Dan Weingart, I see is here. So, folks, I'm going to begin the BanjerDan's show, live, shelter-at-home edition, May 3rd, 2020. This is number 13. I will check my cell phone for comments and requests and dedications and questions. But until I get them, I've been working my way through my set list, through my song list. I left a couple of off last time, and I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I'm still in the B's. And I always start with an Earl Scruggs instrumental. Excuse me. The next one on the list that falls alphabetically is the Bugle Hall Rag. So that's what I'm going to play. And as always, I'm going to start by saying, wow, banjos rock! There you have it, friends. The Bugle Call Rag. Welcome to the BanjerDan's show. Number 13, the BanjerDan's Shelter at Home show. Number 13, May 3rd, 2020. As always, I'm open to your requests and dedications. And as always, lest I forget, I'm one of the many musicians out here trying to make a living through PayPal and Venmo these days. So there's my PayPal address. It's the same as my email address if you would like to write to me. Dan at BanjerDan.net. And on Venmo, I'm Dan-Mazer. Oh, that's backwards. Dan-Mazer, M-A-Z-E-R -1 on Venmo. There you go. Please support your local banjo player of choice. Now, as I said, as I've been going through my set list, my song list here, every now and then I realize, oh, I have left a song off of it. I have something like 300 tunes, but nonetheless, I forget some now and then. And last time I forgot one of my own originals. Can you believe the banjo player forgot his own original song? Well, I can. This is one that I wrote channeling all the rage, all the pain, all the alienation that I felt in my heart as a 14-year-old adolescent. And I channeled all that rage and pain and alienation into a song that I wrote about 10 years ago when I was 50 years old. So stand back, all you squares. I'm going to show you that the banjo really does work for punk rock. This is for all you young people. American Youth in Rebellion. I hate my life. Nobody understands me. Why do you people just leave me alone? I'm not going to clean out my room. Thank you. There you go, American Youth in Rebellion. The other song that I forgot to do, because it wasn't on my list, oops. By Tom Lehrer. Be prepared, that's the Boy Scouts marching song. Be prepared, as through life you march along. Be prepared to hold your liquor pretty well. Don't write naughty words on walls if you can't spell. Be prepared to hide that pack of cigarettes and don't make book. If you cannot cover bets, keep those reefers hidden where you're sure that they will not be found. Be careful not to smoke them when the scoutmaster's around, for he only will insist that they be shared. Be prepared. Be prepared, that's the Boy Scouts solemn creed. Be prepared, and be clean in word and deed. Don't solicit for your sister, that's not nice, unless you get a good percentage of her price. Be prepared, and be careful not to do your good deeds if there's no one watching you. If you're looking for adventure of a new and different kind, and you come upon a Girl Scout who is similarly inclined, don't be nervous, don't be flustered, don't be scared. Be prepared. Be prepared, friends and neighbors. If you're looking for adventure of a new and different kind, and you come upon a Girl Scout who is similarly inclined, don't be nervous, don't be flustered, don't be scared. Be prepared. And I think that catches me up on the songs that I forgot. Oh, wow, look at all the folks watching. Well, thank you, friends. Let's see if there are any requests. Dan, Edward, Adam, Dwayne. Hi, how you doing, Joe? Jared, Joel, Sheila. Sheila Plotz from high school and elementary school. How you doing? Susan. Hi, Susan, my fellow burner. David Whitaker. And you want me to play Heartaches? Ooh, David, wow. Let's see. It's been a long time. Heartaches, heartaches, my loving you brought only heartaches. Your kiss was such a sacred thing to me. I can't believe it's just a burning memory. Heartaches, heartaches, what does it matter how my heart breaks? I should be happy with someone new, but my heart aches for you. With no forethought and no rehearsal at all, that's heartaches. I haven't played it in a long time. For those of you who don't know, one of my biggest influences on the banjo was the great Eddie Adcock, and Eddie and Martha were really, really kind to me, really sweet people when I was a troubled teenager, and I owe them a great debt of love and gratitude. Eddie was the banjo player in The Country Gentleman before I became aware of him, and then later on, when I did become aware of him, he was a huge influence and a great friend. And one of his innovations was this Merle Travis style or Chad Atkins style picking. And I guess he's most famous, or one of his famous solos was "Make Me a Pallet on Your Floor" in B with no capo. Anyway, so that's one of Eddie's innovations was this the Travis pick, and another one was the single string. Playing the banjo with your two fingers like a guitar playing a flat pick. So there you go. Thank you for that request, David. It's nice to see you. David Whitaker, wonderful dobro player, one of my oldest and dearest buddies. Took me out when I was just a teenager to a bunch of bluegrass festivals, including Indian Springs, and one memorable adventure with my younger brother to Stompin' 76. So many things happened there. David, I wonder if you remember when I got my brand new blue jeans completely soaked, and then we spent the night at this preacher had opened up his house to all the traveling hippies, and we slept there for a few hours. And I got up the next morning, and We walked all the way the rest of the 5 miles or whatever it was back to the car. And when I got there, I realized I'd left my blue jeans, my brand new blue jeans, folded over a chair at the preacher's house. My, oh my, those were the days. Continuing down the list, I was in the middle of the bees last time, and I stopped at a Botany Bay, the Australian song about being a prisoner and being sent to Sydney, what's now Sydney, Australia. And the next on the list is Bring It On Home to Me. If you ever change your mind about leaving me behind, whoa, whoa, bring it to me. Bring your sweet lovin', bring it on home to me. You know I laughed when you left, but I was only hurting myself. So whoa, whoa, bring it to me. Bring your sweet lovin', bring it on home to me. I gave you jewelry and money too, but that's not all I did for you. So please bring it to me. Bring your sweet lovin', bring it on home to me. Yeah, yeah. You know I'll always be your slave until I'm dead and buried in my grave. So whoa, whoa, bring it to me. Bring your sweet lovin', bring it on home to me. If you ever change your mind about leaving me behind, whoa, whoa, bring it to me. Bring your sweet lovin', bring it on home to me. Oh, yes, indeed. So the next one on the list will be Bringing Mary Home from the Country Gentlemen. But before I do that, let me check here, see what people have said. Oh, thank you, David. I'm glad you like that. Heartaches. Hello, Roy Brooks. Hello, Butch Robbins, what an honor to have you listening. Thank you very much. Hello, Polly. Polly, I hope you got Melissa and Mark watching as well. David Whitaker says, a heck of a night. Oh, Galex at Stompin' 76. Yep, you were there. All right, back to work. Everybody say, back to work, banjo player. Lazy slob looking at your cell phone instead of looking at your audience. Well, my audience is here as well, so on the cell phone, so I've got to check on that, right? So the next on the alphabetical list is a song that Bill Clifton and John Duffy wrote, apparently based upon a poem that was sent to one of them in the mail. I think Bill Clifton got a postcard in the mail with this story on it with the poem. And John Duffy wrote the melody. I was driving down a lonely road on a dark and stormy night when a little girl by the roadside showed up in my headlights. I stopped and she got in back, and in a shaky tone she said, "My name is Mary, please won't you take me home?" She must have been so frightened, all alone there in the night. There was something strange about her, for her face was deathly white. She sat so pale and quiet in the backseat all alone. I never will forget the night I took Mary home. I pulled into the driveway where she told me to go. Got out to help her from the car and opened up the door. But I just could not believe my eyes, for the back seat was bare. I looked all around the car, but Mary wasn't there. A light shone from the porch. Someone opened up the door. I asked about the little girl that I was searching for. The lady gently smiled. I did that again. Brushed a tear away. She said it sure was nice of you to go out of your way. But 13 years ago today, in a wreck just down the road, our darling Mary lost her life, and we miss her so. Oh, thank you for your trouble and the kindness you have shown. You're the 13th 14th one who's been here, bringing Mary home. Well, I hope you liked that one, friends. That was called Bringing Mary Home. For any of you who love the country gentleman like I do, if you want to hear it done much better than I did it, find the Country Gentleman's Bringing Mary Home album from about 1966, I think that was, 65 or 66. Next on the list is an instrumental, one that I learned from the Seldom Scene, yes, I just scratched myself with my picks, but don't worry, I didn't touch my face. Anyway, I learned this from the great playing of Ben Eldridge of the Seldom Scene, one of the great unsung heroes of the banjo. Well, those of us who know the banjo well and know bluegrass music, everybody knows and respects Ben Eldridge. He was one of these cats who was able to make the banjo fit perfectly into bluegrass, as it always had. He really understands Earl Scruggs' style very well, but he, like Bill Keith, also integrates the melodic style, a little bit of single string. I think of Ben along the same lines as Bill Keith and along the same lines as, say, Lamar Greer, someone who's really good at integrating the different styles. Single string, melodic, and Scruggs style. Of course, Bela does that very well, Bela Fleck. And the latest generation, Noam Pikelny, holy cow. He can blend a phrase, he can make a phrase that blends single string, melodic, and Scruggs into one phrase. You can't tell where one begins and the other ends. He's truly a wonderful player. The future of banjo playing is very, very well in hand with all these great young players. So enough of that. Here's a song that was written by John Starling, who passed away only about a year ago, right around this time of year. So I'm going to send this out to Cynthia Starling and to Jay Starling, his wife and daughter. Wife and daughter, really? His widow and his son. I apologize, Jay, for that. Duh. Here's the C&O Canal. Night in a shanty saloon, he remembers the night of the boatman's tune. It's all a part of the boatman's soul, like the smell of the dust of the Cumberland coal. With a 3-mule team, he winds his way through the Paw Tunnel. About midday, passing lots through the rain and the fog, his thoughts on nights at the Salty Dog. Hey, 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 like ready. Oh, hey, hey, love. Well, the world's like a lockhouse covered with time, live on for us in an old man's mind, never no more. On the C&O Canal line. Doomed by the rail from the very start, his boat still lives in the people's heart. We've a debt to pay and a promise to keep to save his way from an endless sleep. Hey, 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 Lord Ray. Oh, hey, hey, Lord. Well, the world's like a lockhouse covered in time. Live on for us in an old man's mind. Never no more. On the C&O Canal Line. Bells ring, birds sing, sun is shining, no more pining, just we two, shining through. Don't cry, don't sigh, bye bye blues. That was a spontaneous medley, Bully of the Town and Bye Bye Blues, the last of my B songs on the list. And then I pull this thing out again and see who's here. Let's see. Scott. Hello, Scott. Pasquale. Frank Sullivan Sr. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Jamie Rollo, Cheryl, Merle. Oh, Neil. Hi, Neil. How you doing, buddy? Debbie Annan. Sounds good. I really don't do I Am a Pilgrim. I can do a bit of an instrumental version of it, but not really. It's not one that I sing. And Ron Murray. How you doing, Ron? Okay, that catches me up. So I don't do I'm a Pilgrim, so I'll go back onto my list. A couple of California songs here. I'm going to California where they sleep out every night. I'm going to California where they sleep out every night. I'm leaving you, mama, 'cause you know you don't treat me right. I got the California blues and I'm sure gonna leave you here. Got the California blues and I'm sure gonna leave you here. I might ride the plains, I ain't got no railroad fare. Listen to me, mama, while I'm singing this song. Oh, won't you listen to your daddy sing you this lonesome song? You got me worried now, but I won't be worried long. I got the California blues and I'm sure gonna leave you here. Got the California blues, sure gonna leave you here. I might ride the blinds, I ain't got no railroad fare. Let me tell you something, mama, that you don't know. All you winery widows out there, let me tell you something that you don't know. I'm a do-right papa. I got a home everywhere I go. That's the truth. I got the California blues, and I'm sure gonna leave you here. I got the California blues, and I'm sure gonna leave you here. I might ride the blinds. I ain't got no railroad fare. If you don't want me, mama, you don't have to stand and bawl. If you don't want me, mama, don't stand there and bawl. I can get me more women's than a passenger train can haul. Then I wake up. I got the California blues, and I'm sure gonna leave you here. I got the California blues, sure gonna leave you here. I might ride the blinds. I ain't got no railroad fare. There you have it, friends. The California Blues. It's a Jimmy Rogers tune. I got another one coming up. California Cotton Fields, another one that I learned from the Country Gentlemen, the Seldom Seen. They had a couple of members in common. Tom Gray and John Duffy were both in the Country Gentlemen as well as the Seldom Seen. Ricky Skaggs also recorded with both of those bands, by the way. So this song, I believe, was learned from Merle Haggard. I think that's where the Seldom Seen got this one. Don't quote me on that. Maybe Jay Starling will comment. My drifting memory goes back to the spring of '43, when I was just a child in Mama's arms. My daddy plowed the ground and prayed that someday we might leave this rundown mortgaged Oklahoma farm. And then one day I heard my daddy saying to my mama that he had finally saved enough to go. Oh, California was his dream, a paradise where he had seen pictures in a magazine that told him so. California cotton fields, where labor camps were filled with worried men with broken dreams. California cotton fields, as close to wealth as Daddy ever came. Almost everything we owned was sold or left behind. My daddy's plowed and the fruit that Mama canned. Some folks came to say farewell and see what all we had to sell. Some just came to shake my daddy's hand. Yeah, the Model A was loaded down and California bound, with a change of luck just 4 days away. But the only change that I remember seeing in my daddy was when his dark hair turned silver gray. California cotton fields, where labor camps were filled with worried men with broken dreams. California cotton fields, as close to wealth as daddy ever came. Yeah, the Model A was loaded down and California bound, with a change of luck just 4 days away. But the only change that I remember seeing in my daddy was when his dark hair turned silver gray. California cotton fields, where labor camps were filled with worried men with broken dreams. California cotton fields, as close to wealth as daddy ever came. That's California cotton fields, friends. Next on the alphabetical list is Can't You Hear Me Calling from Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. So I recorded this song a long time ago with a fantastic singer and guitar player, Moondy Klein, singing lead on it. I was in a band for about 15 minutes with Moondy and Jamie Daly and Ira Gitlin. It was a damn good band called Rock Creek. And I think that I'm going to take the responsibility for this. Had I been a little more mature in my head and my emotions, we might have been able to go a little farther than we did in the music business. But I'm going to say that it was pretty much due to me that Rock Creek went nowhere. But I also think from the perspective that I have now that being in a band isn't always the best thing. I think I could do it now, but back then I just don't think I had the psychological chops for it. Anyway, enough aspersions cast my own way. I recorded this in the key of E with Moondy Klein singing it, and more recently I found out how to put a different kind of key change in it than the one that I recorded. So here it is. I'm going to do it in a slightly lower key with this really interesting key change. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you to great Bill Monroe for writing this one. Another one I learned from the Country Gentlemen, by the way, with Charlie Waller singing lead and John Duffy just screaming this incredible tenor up above him. Really great recording. But I can't do it in that key. The days are dark, the nights are lonely, since you left me all alone. I worried so, my little darling, I love you so, since you've been gone. Sweetheart of mine, can't you hear me calling? A million times I love you best, mistreated you, Lord, and I'm sorry. Come back to me, it's my request. I remember, dear, the night we parted. A big mistake's what caused it all. If you'll come back, sunshine will follow. To stay away would be my fault. Sweetheart of mine, can't you hear me calling? A million times I love you best. Mistreated you, Lord, and I'm sorry. Come back to me is my request. The days are dark, the nights are lonely, and now I need your sweet embrace. When I looked up, the sun was shining. When I woke up, I saw your face. Sweetheart of mine, can't you hear me calling? 1,000,000 times I loved you best. Mistreated you, Lord, and I'm sorry. Come back to me is my request. Come back to me is my request. Can't you hear me calling? Next on the list is Casey's Last Ride, and that's one that I do on the guitar. So before I switch to guitar, I will check my cell phone here once again. Sunday, you'll do one for me. How about Footprints in the Snow? Yes, I do have that one in my repertoire. Steve, how are you? Elizabeth Gottfried, Brian, hello. Hi, Elizabeth. Wayne Walkoff, how you doing, brother? Greg, Shorty is back. Hi, Shorty, how you doing, brother? RJ Storm. And Tim, RJ, how are you, man? I sure miss all my friends from Gray Fox. Maybe in 2021, I'll finally get back to the East Coast for one of the best festivals ever, which is called Gray Fox up in the hills of New York State. Well, I guess I'm doing a pretty country gentleman centric set right now, because here's another one that I learned from the Country Gentleman, and it's written by Kristofferson. Casey joins the hollow sound of silent people walking down the stairway to the subway and the shadows down below. Following his footsteps through the neon darkened corridors in silent desperation, never speaking to a soul. The poisoned air he's breathing has the dirty smell of dying, 'cause it's never seen the sunshine and it's never felt the rain. Casey minds the arrows and ignores the fatal echo of the clicking of the turnstile and the rattle of his chains. Oh, she said, Casey, it's been so long since I've seen you. Here, she said, just a kiss to make a body smile. See, she said, I put on new stockings just to please you. Lord, she said, Casey, could you only stay a while? Casey leaves the underground and stops inside the Golden Crown for something wet to wipe away the chill that's on his bones. Seeing his reflection in the lives of all the lonely men who reach for everything they can to keep from going home. Standing in the corner, Casey drinks his pint of bitter, never glancing in the mirror at the people passing by. Then he stumbles as he's leaving, and he wonders if the reason is the beer that's in his belly or the tear that's in his eye. Oh, she said, I suppose you seldom think about me. Now, she said, now that you've a family of your own. Still, she said, it's so blessed good to feel your body. Lord, she said, Casey, it's a shame to be alone. Oh, she said, Casey, it's been so long since I've seen you. Here, she said, just a kiss to make a body smile. See, she said, I put on new stockings just to please you. Lord, she said, Casey, could you only stay a while? Lord, she said, Casey, it's a shame to be alone. Now that is a wistful song, if ever I've heard one. It's called Casey's Last Ride, written by Kristofferson, sung just so beautifully by Charlie Waller with the Country Gentlemen, one of my favorite singers ever. And if you have never heard of the Country Gentlemen, I urge you to go find, especially their early recordings. Maybe not the earliest recordings, although those were great too when they were just teenagers, but the Bringin' Mary Home album and the Traveler album from about 1966-67, around that period. John Duffy and Eddie Adcock were just killing it. And then after John Duffy left the band at about 69 and Eddie left the band around 1970, Charlie Waller re-recruited Bill Emerson and then to play the banjo, and Doyle Lawson to play the mandolin, both of whom had played banjo with Jimmy Martin, by the way. And those two brought a whole new element to the band, and they really had a wonderful, exciting period. They recorded an album called The Award-Winning Country Gentlemen, and that's the one that has Fox on the Run and The Legend of the Rebel Soldier and several other of their really big hits. But as I go down the list, the next one on the list is one that I learned in summer camp. If I have any of my Camp Darkwaters friends watching from the late 60s up to the mid 70s, so good to see all you guys. Got to make it back there someday. But this is also one that the Country Gentlemen recorded. But they recorded this one to make fun of the Kingston Trio, because as far as they were concerned, the Kingston Trio were kind of faux folk music, softened up the edges. Of course, people had the same criticism of the Country Gentlemen, and they had the same criticism of the Osborne Brothers and the same criticism of Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs. That slick stuff ain't the way my grandpappy did it, no sir. But I'd like to point out that Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys and Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs and the Stanley Brothers, the Osborne Brothers, the Country Gentlemen, all these other bands, they didn't think of themselves as folk musicians. They were not trying, like Alan Lomax or someone like that, to preserve an ancient tradition. They were out to have hits. They wanted to sell records. They wanted people to come to their live appearances so that they could make $1 or $2. And that's completely honorable. So here I'm going to do a song that was a big hit for the Kingston Trio and a novelty song for the Country Gentlemen. Pardon me. Charlie and the MTA. Let me tell you all the story about a man named Charlie on a tragic and fateful day. He put 10 cents in his pocket, kissed his wife and family, went to ride on the MTA. And did he ever return? No, he never returned. And his fate is still unlearned. Poor old Charlie, he may ride forever neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. Charlie handed in his dime at the Scully Square station and he rode to Jamaica Plain. When he got there, the conductor shouted, "One more nickel!" Charlie couldn't get off of that train. And did he ever return? No, he never returned. And his fate is still unknown. Poor old Charlie, he may ride forever neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. Now all night long, Charlie rides to the stations crying, "What will become of me? How can I afford to see my sister in Chelsea or my brother in Roxbury?" Did he ever return? No, he never returned. And his fate is still unknown. Poor old Charlie, he may ride forever neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. Charlie's wife heads down to the Scully Square station every day at 2:15. And through the open window, she gives Charlie the finger. She asks Charlie a sandwich as the train goes rumbling through. And did he ever return? No, he never returned. And his fate is still unlearned. Poor old Charlie, he may ride forever neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. A question, please. Don't you think Charlie's wife could have handed him a nickel instead of a sandwich? Now, all you citizens of Boston, don't you think it's a scandal how the people have to pay and pay? Fight the fare increase, vote for George O'Brien, get poor Charlie off the MTA. Or else he'll never return, no, he'll never return, and his fate will stay unlearned. Shame and scandal, he may ride forever neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. He's the man who never returned. He's the man who never returned. Charlie and the MTA. My, oh my. I'm having some fun now, friends. The next two songs on my list are Christmas is Coming, and Christmas Time at Home, back home. And I would prefer not to do those in the middle of spring. So I'm going to save those two Christmassy songs for December, if you don't mind. And I'm going to jump right to the city of New Orleans. And then okay, then I have a few more C songs that are singing songs before I get to Colorado Turnaround. So here we go, friends. This is one that, which one is it? City of New Orleans. Oh, another one I learned from the Seldom Scene. City of New Orleans is, I believe it's the first cut on side 2 of the Seldom Seen's very first album, Act 1. Fantastic dobro solo by Mike Aldridge on that, for sure. And the Seldom Seen play the correct chord progression. Arlo Guthrie also recorded City of New Orleans, and he changed the chords a little bit. But I do it a la Seldom Seen and a la Steve Goodman, who I did get to see perform once in the Virgin Islands, of all places. When I was a 15-year-old kid, brand new on the banjo, he was not impressed. Riding on the City of New Orleans, Illinois Central Monday morning rail. It's got 16 cars, 16 restless riders, 3 conductors, 25 sacks of mail. We're all out on a southbound odyssey as the train pulls out from Kankakee, rolling past houses, farms, and fields, passing towns that have no name, freight yards full of old black men, and graveyards of rusted automobiles. Good morning, America, how are you? Don't you know me? I'm your native son. On the train they call the City of New Orleans, I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. Dealing cards with the old man in the club car. It's penny a point, ain't no one keeping score. Walk past the paper bag that holds the bottle. You can feel the wheels rumbling through the floor. And the sons of Pullman porters and the sons of engineers brought their father's magic carpet made of steel. And the mothers with their babes asleep go rocking to the gentle beat. Rhythm of the rails is all they feel. Good morning, America, how are you? Don't you know me? I'm your native son. On the train they call the City of New Orleans, I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. Midnight on the City of New Orleans, changing cars in Memphis, Tennessee. We're halfway home, we'll be there by morning. Through the Mississippi darkness, roll into the sea. And all the towns and people seem to fade into a bad dream. Old steel rails still ain't heard the news. The conductor sings his song again. Passengers will please refrain. This train's got the disappear on blues. Good morning, America, how are you? Don't you know me? I'm your native son. On the train they call the City of New Orleans, I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. I'll be gone 500 miles when the day is done. City of New Orleans by Steve Goodman. Next song on my list is Coconut Island, but before I play Coconut Island, here's my cell phone again. Let me check for requests and dedications. Mark, Gottfried, good to see you. John Cook and Tim, all right. I have only 3 people watching right now. Come on back, folks. Request a song, ask a question, and I'll get to it. I'm going to send this one out to Jerry Gontang and to my San Diego friends, the Jackstraws, from whom I learned this song, Coconut Island. On a coconut island, I'd like to be a castaway with you. On a coconut island, there wouldn't be so very much to do. I would linger a while and gaze into your loving eyes of blue. And I'd walk for a mile and come running back to be with you. And there the waves would make a pair of willing slaves of you and me forever. And for days and days we'd never gaze out where the ships go sailing by. On a coconut island, I'd like to be a castaway with you. On a coconut island, where you could make my dreams come true. On a coconut island, I'd like to be a castaway with you. On a coconut island, there wouldn't be so very much to do. I would linger a while and gaze into your loving eyes of blue. I don't care what color your eyes are. And I'd walk for a mile and come running back to be with you. Ooh. And there the waves would make a pair of willing slaves of you and me forever. And for days and 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 days, we'd never gaze out where the ships go sailing by. On a coconut island, I'd like to be a castaway with you and you and you and you and you. And on a coconut island, you could make my dreams come true. My dreams come true. Coconut Island. I don't even know who recorded that originally. But I do know that the next song on my list is another one that I got from the Seldom Scene. This was written by the great dobro player Josh Graves, who worked with Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs for decades. And then after they broke up, Josh went to work for Lester Flatt for a few more years. And then after, at some point, I think before Lester passed away, Josh had already left the band and he started playing shows with Kenny Baker. But there was one memorable festival in Bush, Louisiana, back when I was living in New Orleans. So this was about 1983. My younger brother was in Tulane, and I thought I might live in New Orleans for a little while. So I went down there to visit, and I tried to establish some bluegrass there. And I got to know Bill Malone, who wrote the first scholarly work on country music called Country Music USA, and his buddy Pat Flory, who was also a friend of my younger brother's. So we put together this little bluegrass thing, and we went to Bush, Louisiana, and we had the honor of backing up Josh Graves and Joe Stewart. And for those of you who don't know about Joe Stewart, I think he was the only person to play every instrument in the Bill Monroe band at one point or another, except except mandolin. And I saw Joe Stewart with Bill Monroe a couple of times, and I also saw Joe Stewart as a member of the Shenandoah Cut-Ups. And boy, was he a fabulous musician, just a great picker and a really kind and generous man. It's one of the things that set bluegrass apart all those years ago, was that you could just walk right up to Mr. Monroe or Earl Scruggs or just about any of the stars and chat with them and ask them questions. And they were always very open. And even to a weird little city boy like me, as I was at the time, they were really gracious and kind. And I have the whole bluegrass community to thank for that, for sure. So let's see if I can get through the Colorado turnaround. I was into the second part when I realized I'd forgotten the second part. I'm going to have to look it up. I apologize for that, folks. But remember, this is worth every penny that you pay, especially if you choose to pay nothing. And that gives me an opportunity to remind you, since it's over an hour into the program now, that I do accept your generous donations on PayPal with my email address, dan@banjerdan.net, and of course Venmo at dan-mazer-1. I was given the advice today that I should really think about doing a Patreon page. So I am thinking about that when the relief money comes in because of the COVID virus. I intend to get myself some better sound and video equipment so that I'm not caught looking at my cell phone every 3 minutes to see who's talking to me or what your requests are. Bear with me, folks. And also, I might get something called a cappella, because I have some friends who want to do video recordings where we could all be playing one song together. I think that would be really cool. Okay, so back to work. After the Colorado turnaround, the next song is Colleen Malone. Another one that we used to do in Rock Creek. This one comes to bluegrass from a band called Hot Rise, Hotrize, named after the special ingredient in Martha White flour that makes their biscuits so light and fluffy and tasty. Now you make right with Martha White. Goodness gracious, good and light, Martha White. You bake better biscuits, cakes, and pies with Martha White self-rising flour, that one all-purpose flour. Martha White's self-rising flour's got Hot Rise. Colleen Malone. It's been 10 years and 3 since I first went to sea, since I sailed from old Ireland and home. And those hills lush and green were all part of my dreams, as I dreamed of my Colleen Malone. the day I returned to my sorrow, I learned that the angels had called her away to a grave on the hill overlooking the mill. That's the place where she's sleeping today. As the soft breezes blow through the meadow I go, past the mill with the moss-covered stone. Up the pathway I climb through the woods and the vines to be with my colleague alone. She was faithful each day as I sailed far away. There was no one but me that she loved. And I remember those eyes, soft and blue as the skies, and her heart was as pure as a dove. As the soft breezes blow through the meadow I go, past the mill with the moss-covered stone. Up the pathway I climb through the woods and the vines to be with my colleague alone. For the rest of my life I will not take a wife. I will live in this valley alone, planting flowers around in the soft, gentle ground that is holding my colleague alone. As the soft breezes blow through the meadow I go, past the mill with the moss-covered stone. Up the pathway I climb through the woods and the vines to be with my colleague alone. Up the pathway I climb through the woods and the vines to be with my colleague alone. Colleen Malone by Hot Rise by way of Pete Goebel. Here's a Lester Flying the Earl Scruggs song in the wrong key. Come back to me, little darling. I miss you each day and each night. Oh, come back to me, little darling. Don't leave me alone all my life. I know I can never be happy, no matter whatever I do. I know it's harsh and lonely here without you. Won't you come back and be true? Oh, come back to me, little darling. I miss you each day and each night. Come back to me, little darling. Don't leave me alone all my life. Oh, come back to me, little darling. I miss you each day and each night. Come back to me, little darling. Don't leave me alone all my life. In my head, I kept hearing, why, oh, why did you wander? Why did you ever roam? And then I couldn't keep the two songs straight in my head. Not even stoned, folks, I promise. But sometimes it just happens that way that you forget stuff. Hello, cowgirl in the sand. Is this place at your command? Can I stay here for a while? Can I see your sweet, sweet smile? Old enough now to change your name when so many love you. Is it the same? It's the woman in you that makes you want to play this game. Hello, Ruby in the dust. Has your band begun to rust? Purple words on a gray background. To be a woman and to be turned down. Old enough now to change your name when so many love you. Is it the same? It's the woman in you that makes you want to play this game. Hello, woman of my dreams. Is this not the way it seems? After all the sin we've had, I was hoping that we'd turn back. Old enough now to change your name when so many love you. Is it the same? It's the woman in you makes you want to play this game. For those of you who don't recognize it, that was, of course, Cowgirl in the Sand by Neil Young. Double checking my time, friends, because I can, because I should. Oops. Ha ha ha. Man alive, sometimes this technology just really burns me, you know what I mean? 127, okay. Which tells me that I have a bit of time left. Shorty, thank you. William Metters, good to see you, buddy. Thank you. Be sure you make some requests. I am picking up my cell phone from time to time and checking on the messages. Hopefully before too long, I will have in place everything I need to just watch messages come in, requests, dedications, questions about banjo technique. I welcome it all. Next on the alphabetical list, I'm going to skip crazy. So next on the list is Cripple Creek and also Cumberland Gap. I'm going to throw those two together. Both of these are a Scruggs style pickin', and but for Cripple Creek, I come up with a few variations. So see how you like it. There's a little medley of Cripple Creek and Cumberland Gap. And I see that I skipped a tune on my list of C songs. Songs beginning with the letter C. C, senor. Let's get that framed correctly. There we go. C, senor. Possibly the most successful song that Bill Danoff ever wrote with John Denver. Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like the breeze. Country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia. Mountain mama, take me home, country road. All my memories gather round her, miner's lady, stranger to blue water. Dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia. Mountain mama, take me home, country road. I hear her voice in the morning hour, she calls to me. Radio reminds me of my home far away. Driving down the road, I get the feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia. Mountain mama, take me home, country road. Oh, take me home, down country road. I promise it's not COVID, folks. Just trying to hit that high note and hold it. I hope you enjoyed that a little bit. That was John Denver's song called Country Roads. So now here are a couple of more songs that begin with the letter C. Actually, I'm moving on from C, aren't I? I'm going to my next song in the list is one that I wrote myself. I wrote this at a petting farm in Maryland one day. I was playing the tune called Bile and Cabbage Down and watching a whole bunch of urban children who had never been to a farm before and were getting their first chance to see horses and chickens and eggs and all that. So they were running around dancing, and all of a sudden this lyric came to my mind, and they children started laughing, and I just improvised this new tune. It's called Dance, 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 but Don't Take Off Your Pants. Dance, 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 everybody dance. Dance, 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 but don't take off your pants. Don't take off your pants, not here. Dance, 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 listen what I said. Dance, 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 but don't take off your head. You look silly with no head. Dance, 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 any way you please. Dance, 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 but don't take off your knees. Dance, 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 overcome your fears. Dance, 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 and don't pull off your ears. Dance, 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 now you're looking sweet. Dance, 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 so don't take off your feet. Dance, 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 like you're eating something yummy. Dance, 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 and don't take off your tummy. Dance, 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 like they do down on the farm. Dance, 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 and don't take off your arm. Dance, 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 you know it's flowing like a river. Dance, 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 and don't take out your liver. Ew. Dance, 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 strike a classic pose. Dance, 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 and don't take off your nose. Dance, 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 everybody dance. Dance, 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 but don't take off your pants. Sing with me. Dance, 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 everybody dance. Dance, 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 but don't take off your pants. One more time. Dance, 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 everybody dance. Dance, 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 but don't take off your pants. I'm going to dedicate that to anyone who might be listening who is under the age of 12, and also to my friend Kenny Lee Lewis, who plays with another band that has a song called Dance, 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 but it's not that song. It's getting near time for me to play my last couple of numbers, folks. My last numbers are always Less and Less by Tim O'Brien, and boy, I'm having a hard time thinking, not even stoned. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe the problem is that I didn't smoke up. Aha. But the other one is my own song called The Longer You Live. But I got time for a couple more before that. Going down my... Oh, let me see if there are any requests. Hold on. Have any of you requested anything? Hey, Bruce. I should play a Beatles song for Bruce. Casey Biggs, how you doing, buddy? And Gary Reese, Dorian, Grady. Oh, man. It's so nice to see all of you folks listening, watching, having a good time. Remember, you can request a song here on my cell phone. And I am working to upgrade my technology. La-di-da-di-da-di-da. Don't forget my PayPal if you would like to contribute to the banjo player of your choice. It's the same as my email address. And I have a Venmo as well, at Dan-Mazer-1. And as I mention every week, twice a week here on my Sheltered Home shows, friends, I'm not the only musician out here trying to make a living through the Venmo and the Patreon and the PayPal. So if you like what I do, I sure appreciate a donation. but also save some for some of the other musicians, AJ Lee and Blue Summit. I know that Joseph Tucker has been on, Greg Gehring, Merle, Johnson, all kinds of really great musicians out there playing live because they can't play live in front of you, so they're playing on their computers like I am. So please show them some love, just as I hope you show me some love. All right, back to work. I am going to arbitrarily skip the next song on my list because I only do it by request generally on March 17th. It's Danny Boy. I just don't think I do that one very well, but I do this one okay. By the great Merle Travis. Come all young fellows, so young and so fine, and seek not your fortune in the dark, dreary mine. It will form as a habit and seep in your soul, till the stream of your lifeblood is dark as the coal. Where it's dark as a dungeon and damp as the dew, where the dangers are double and the pleasures are few, where the rain never falls and the sun never shines. It's dark as a dungeon way down in the mines. There's many a miner I've seen in my day who lived just to labor his poor life away, like a fiend with his dope or a drunkard his wine. A man will have lust for the lure of the mind, where it's dark as a dungeon and damp as the dew, where the dangers are double and the pleasures are few, where the rain never falls and the sun never shines. It's dark as a dungeon way down in the mines. I hope when I die and the ages shall roll, my body will blacken and turn into coal. Then I'll look from the door of my heavenly home, and I'll pity the miner who's digging my bones, where it's dark as a dungeon and damp as the dew, where the dangers are double and the pleasures are few, where the rain never falls and the sun never shines. It's dark as a dungeon way down in the mines. Dark as a Dungeon by Merle Travis. That's a song that I actually learned at Camp Dark Waters back in the 60s. And it's included on the original Will the Circle Be Unbroken record. And if you've never heard that one, go get it. Has Earl Scruggs on it, and Jimmy Martin, and Doc Watson, and Vassar Clements. Oh my gosh, Mother Maybelle Carter's on it, along with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, those hippies. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Here's one that comes to bluegrass by way of the Grateful Dead and the Seldom Seen, Dark Hollow. I'd rather be in some dark hollow where the sun don't ever shine than to be here alone, knowing that you're gone would cause me to lose my mind. So blow your whistle, freight train, carry me farther on down the track. I'm going away, I'm leaving today, I'm going, but I ain't coming back. I'd rather be in some dark hollow where the sun don't ever shine than to be Lord in New York City in a small room with your love on my mind. So blow your whistle, freight train, carry me farther on down the track. I'm going away, I'm leaving today, I'm going, but I ain't coming back. I'd rather drink muddy water and sleep in a hollow log than to stay here in this big city being treated like a dirty dog. So blow your whistle, freight train, carry me farther on down the track. I'm going away, I'm leaving today, I'm going, but I ain't coming back. I'm going away, I'm leaving today, I'm going, but I ain't coming back. Dark Hollow, friends. I'm going to check my listings one more time. Hello, Ann. Good to see you. Kevin, Brian, Bruce, already been here. Good to see you. Checking the time, as I must every time. 11:51. Yes, friends, it is time for me to play my last two numbers. I want to thank all of you who are here profusely for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is profuse. And thank you for supporting me on Patreon or on PayPal and Venmo if you do. Please support other musicians as well. I will be back next Wednesday at 3 p.m. California time, so I can play for folks on the East Coast in the evening. And then in Sundays, I'm playing at noon to 2 in order to catch folks on the West Coast, and so it's not too late on the East Coast. And folks in Europe also can check it out when I start a little earlier. And with that, friends, I think I'm done with all my expository stuff and with everything that I don't normally do. So I'm going to play Less and Less by Tim O'Brien, truly one of the great songwriters, singers, instrumentalists that we could ever hope to have, and we're lucky that we got him in bluegrass. Here's a song that means a lot to me, and I hope it means something to you. Less and Less. I try to travel around with less and less. I've tried them all, and the simple way is the way that's best. I save a lot of time not having to choose what color shirt to wear, which pair of shoes. Don't need a guitar to sing my song. Wherever I land, I know I'll get along. I've been up and down the road a time or two, I guess. Now I try to travel around with less and less. I had a woman once, she was not my wife. I took a long detour on that road of life. I carried that weight, it nearly broke my back. I almost lost the ones I loved, getting back on track. I wasted lots of time and I still feel the pain. Made a vow I won't go through that again. I've been up and down the road a time or two, I guess. Now I try to travel around with less and less. Coffee in the morning, little wine at night. A meal somewhere in the middle, I think I'll be alright. I've got my pride, I've got a smile to greet the day. I've got a friend or two to help me through when I lose my way. That's you, friends, thank you. Don't need a guitar to sing my song. Wherever I land, I'll always get along. I've been up and down the road a time or two, I guess. Now I try to travel around with less and less. I've been up and down the road a time or two, I guess. And now it's time to travel around with less and less. Friends, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for hanging out with me for the last 2 hours, if you have, or if you just showed up, I sure appreciate it. Please spread the word that there is music going on the internet now. Let folks know that I'm out here doing my thing. Hopefully soon enough, we'll have live music again. I might have to wear a mask when I do it. Some of the women undoubtedly would prefer if I did. everyone join me in a rousing chorus of Wow, Banjos Rock. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wow! Banjos rock! Well, the longer you live, the more people you're gonna see die. And the longer you live, the more tears you're gonna cry. Well, the longer you live, the more you're gonna feel sorrow and pain. So you might as well accept it, or else it just might drive you insane. Well, the longer you live, the more people gonna break your heart. And the longer you live, the more your body and your mind fall apart. Well, the longer you live, the more likely that you're gonna get hurt. And the longer you live, that's just the sooner you'll be under the dirt. That's why we dance now. Well, the longer you live, the more you see how they've rigged the game. And the longer you live, you see it always turns out the same. Well, the longer you live, the more you're tempted to give up and give in. But you're better off deciding to fight until the bitter end. And you know why, right? Because the longer you live, the more babies you're gonna see. And the longer you live, another sunrise and beautiful morn. Another night to gaze in wonder at the heavens above. And the longer you live, the more chances that you have to make love. That's right. Well, friends, thank you for tuning into the BanjerDan's show. I'm done for now, except I will repeat the first verse. And if you're watching and listening, I hope you'll shout the last couple of words of every line back at me. Then when I get to the part about going insane, please give me some insane laughter, okay? Okay? Okay, let's do it! Well, the longer you live, the more people you're gonna see die. Gonna see die! And the longer you live, the more tears you're gonna cry. Gonna cry. Well, the longer you live, the more you're gonna feel heartache and pain. So you might as well accept it, or else it just might drive you insane. Yeah, you might as well accept it, or else it just might drive you insane. Yeah, you better just accept it, or else it just might drive you insane. Wow, Banjos rock! Thank you, friends, and good night.